Hey guys, it's Ryan, and this week is something a little different. We've passed Spooktober, and now Michael Bublé has come from his cave, and Mariah Carey has been thawed. That's right, it's the holiday season, which means seasonal content! Don't worry, this will be the only video, and that will be the only time I ever do that. Usually, wargaming channels, largely Warhammer ones, does a what to get the wargamer in your life. And I mean, it's a solid video idea, just they usually talk about Warhammer stuff. So this video is about that, but for Infinity. Although a couple of points do count towards general wargaming, so I mean there might be a few bits worth it if your interest does not like Infinity. In this video I won't just suggest models, and I'll talk about why each option is a pretty good idea so that you can make the final decision. Now I won't suggest paints or brushes, as that's like a whole video on its own and I just don't know enough about that. Finally, thanks to my wife, I joked about doing this video, then she very quickly told me that it would be a useful one. I think fishing for ideas, but since then we've caught some ideas, but I still blame/thank her for this video. With that, remember to like and subscribe for more. The more you do, the more she'll be vindicated. I know I just said I wouldn't recommend more models, but like HVTs don't count. I mean, they do, but there's a reason I will suggest them. That reason is that they're pretty much evergreen models in that if your giftee has all the models in a given faction, they're still going to need some HVTs, which are basically humanoid objective markers. In terms of game rules, they are basically a token in which you play around, and they don't really come with a profile or guns. This means that Corvus Belli, or anyone who makes models in the same scale, can sit down and make a really neat civilian NPC for players to fight over. Now there are only 3 HVT options regularly for sale: the Phenomar and the Dragon Lady, and Colonel Vorin. Vorin does have a regular profile in 2 armies, but he can be used as a HVT with a spare dog friend, as he has the parts and 2 separate bases in his blister. Anyway, these are 3 fairly nice and decently cheap, almost stocking filler level, as a fun, unique, non-army related, but very useful gift. I think if something for painters and for those who don't have a massive backlog spanning over a year's worth of work. Now, there are more than 3 HVTs out there, but they're available as part of the Direful boxes, which is a little trickier to suggest without having some form of talk with the recipient, since Direful's contains 2 models with profiles for certain armies, and then 1 HVT. I would recommend them if you see one of the armies that your giftee plays, and maybe get them that if they don't have the model and HVT. Then they have this other one to use as a proxy, or pass on to someone else. Hopefully not sell, that is just a little bit rude. Another way to get HVTs is to look for limited edition models, which sounds daunting, but a lot of shops buy a few dozen in, and sometimes they just don't sell. So fancy HVTs for sale. I'm talking about models like the new Dragon Lady event exclusive, Helen of Troy, and the Illuminatrix of the Observance, although some of the less violent ones, like the Tyrock Hunter and Octavia, could also be used as well. It's just something to consider. Really, I recommend these as my first and kind of weakest suggestion. It's very good if you know about the giftee's hobby situation well enough, or have communicated with them enough about it. If you can figure out if they need a HVT and what their taste is, you could find a really nice gift here that they'll enjoy painting. Tokens and bases are a nice gift as well, as they're adjacent enough that many players might not always get the nice ones for themselves immediately. Some do, but not all. Some players will do quick and dirty bases or get exactly the tokens they need. With this gift idea, you're offering a couple of nice to have pieces to the recipient who may not have thought to put a little extra effort in. Both these gifts sit around €10 to €20 mark, so it's not a big investment, and both offer lots of different options depending on where you are and what you want to spend. So let's start with bases. When I say bases, I mean 2 things: the pre-made textured bases and base toppers. You can also lump in basing materials here, but really I'm talking about the thermoplastic bases from CB and the resin ones available from elsewhere. There are a few MDF ones as well, and those are a different style, but absolutely still available. Pre-painted options I think are a thing, but they're not really that common. But for the sake of the Infinity, you're looking for 25mm, 40mm, and 55mm bases. That is the base's diameter, if that matters for you, but most base sellers do it in the diameter anyway. or just in case you do 3D printing. If you're trying to kit out a list, then you'll need maybe 15 to 20 bases of various size, but it's not something I can help you with, except that 25mm is probably the most common, with maybe 10 to 15, and 40mm the second most common, with around 3 to 5, and finally 1 to 3 55mm bases. Now, this is very approximate, so take that a grain of salt, and researching what your giftee has might help out. Corvus Belli themselves do some. They'll be the right theme and size, and the theme of the bases is vaguely important, but not really. Infinity is a sci-fi game, and as such, anything that can fit alien planets, space stations, snow, desert, or jungle planets will be appropriate. Seeing what your giftee already has can be a big help here, as you can pick up stuff that either matches or contrasts if they're doing a new army. Base toppers are kind of like bases, except they're pre-textured sculpts that sit on top of bases. They make use of regular bases that you've got, which is good for Infinity since we have those little line of fire markers, and as such can be a good idea for someone who just doesn't want to base their minis. These can be made from simple MDF or resin and can be pretty nice in bringing an army together. A good thing about these options is that a local wargaming store is likely to know enough about it to be able to help you, or even have some stock for you to grab some. Even if they lack them, they probably may still have some basing bits, which could be a nice alternative, but I'm not covering that because that goes under general hobby supplies and can be a whole separate thing. But if they have some nice sci-fi bits, that could be a nice buy. Tokens are in a similar vein to bases in that they are a nice to have thing that most players will have, but not all of the ones they may possibly need. Now, there are acrylic or wooden tokens, so it's pretty varied, so you want to see what they've already got and try to do something similar or the same to that. It's a bit more prep, but a nice gift here as well. Another point to focus on is to see what they're making do with and focus on that. Like personally, I'm making do with cardboard camo, smoke and silhouette markers, so I might personally want to focus on that. If you're a surprise gifter, or if you want to avoid research, then this might not be for you. Although, if you want a gift that will get well used and don't mind a conversation, then this is absolutely the one for you. I personally love and adore gifts that get used fairly often. I recommend these two as smaller but well appreciated gifts that add something to the hobby while not being more models. Bases do mean stuff to paint, but it's small fries compared to a model. Tokens require no interaction to set up beyond getting a game, so those are something that will see use as soon as possible, which is always nice. Terrain is a bit of a bigger gift and more expensive, but it's one that will get used fairly quickly as you kind of need it to play the game. So how do you get the right one? And well, there isn't really a wrong answer. Well, there kind of is, but I mean, just avoid those L-shaped runes from like Warhammer or anything labelled Gothic and has an abundance of skulls on it. So you're looking at more conventional buildings, and this sort of thing can be bought from Corvus Belli themselves, TT Combat, Micro Art Studio, War Arsenal, and many, many more, in usually cardstock or MDF. These are nice, blocky boxes with ladders, chest-high walls, in scale with Infinity, and built more or less for the game. Now, one of these terrain pieces does not make a game table, but that's why it kind of works as a gift. You're contributing to a bigger project. You'll need to set aside a bit, as the prices can be wide-ranging, but a solid piece of MDF or pack of card terrain will go in a long way in getting a table going. Scattered terrain is another one that is well appreciated. It can be a bit of a joke to tell someone to throw some scatter on a table and it's done regardless of table state, but it's kind of true. Chest-high walls, tactical skips and benches and vending machines make a table feel alive and fun to play on. So grabbing this stuff can be useful for finishing off a table or even getting started, although largely the first one though. Objective terrain is more like fancy tokens, but can be used as scatter terrain as well. But it's something that is a nice to have. It makes objectives a little more fancy and a bit clearer, and these are another idea like scatter terrain that's not too expensive and much smaller. You can grab some at the same places you can usually get acrylic tokens or terrain, or even at Corvus Belli themselves, as they make an objective pack. It's fairly big, costly, but it's pretty comprehensive and requires some painting. Finally, 3D prints are available if that is something you yourself do as a hobby, but I can't speak too much about that. So in general, terrain is a pretty good gift to look into and consider, as it sits at a lot of different price points that only needs just a wee bit of research. Is your giftee a bookworm? Well, good news then. We have 3 Infinity books come December and 3 graphic novels. Not Black Library level of books, but There are some. Starting with the 3 graphic novels, we have Outrage, following a story of a retired Black Ops sniper called Neuf being pulled back from retirement. Betrayal follows the Yujing trooper turned Combined Army agent Kodali and Yujing officer Adil in a story of political and military intrigue as they try to divine loyalties and the truth of the matters at hand. And finally is Aftermath, which follows the dark dealings of the underground and minor league Aristea fighters who work together to pull off a heist in the mafia state of Tunguska. It follows Uhahu, a skilled hacker who hails from the cruel experiments within Tunguska, and Dima Connolly, a Caledonian Aristea fighter. I don't know much more than the synopsis about all 3, but they're all well reviewed by fans, so anyone could be a good choice. I think before the newest one released, Betrayal was the go-to recommended one, but I can't confirm that, so try your best to find reviews and make the decision that way. In terms of paperback novels, you have 3 that Corvus Belli has licensed out to Zmok Books. Downfall, which follows Pan-Oceanian Knight Hospitaller Kyle Hawkins as he's deployed to a dense jungle on tour only 2 days out of training. Kyle and his fellow soldiers are forced to defend a research facility from rival superpower Yujing. Team Z, the second book, no relation to the first, dives into the seedy underbelly of the Nomad motherships, which is to say just nomads in general, as a coordinated attack cripples Yujing and Aleph investigates. All that stands between the mothership and disaster is a gang of small, dirty, tired criminals. Finally is Eragart, which follows diplomat soldier Wilhelm Gotzinger III as he works with the local Caledonians to resolve an alien conspiracy. Eragart is also out December the 19th, so it's not really in time for Christmas, but you may never know. You might notice that these books tend to be themed around specific factions, and I do kind of recommend at least the books along those lines. NA2 players are going to enjoy Outrage and Aftermath. Yujing and Combined Army players are going to enjoy Betrayal, Nomads will enjoy Aftermath and Team Z. Pano players will really enjoy Downfall, and Eragart will be drawing the eyes of Pan-Oceanian and Ariadna players. Really though, the graphic novels are an easier recommendation to anyone as they're a lot shorter than an actual novel. The paperbacks could be enjoyed by anyone, but it will depend if they like the factions, the story being told, and the setting more. With some review reading, you can pick up one that the giftee might enjoy. There are lots of spy thrillers and political intrigue, but we have heists and more conventional military action books as well, so see what sounds good and pick that up. The final option is to spend some time with your intended giftee, if that is your relationship dynamic and if that is something they might like. Is it a cop-out? Yes, but I'm still going to suggest it because the holidays are not about gifts, but about spending time with people. And if they don't mind, they may enjoy the evening teaching you to play, having a friendly match against you if you're already into the game, or maybe even just a hobby evening together where you paint or just chill. Again, cop out, yes, but trust me, it could be very appreciated. And that was my video on what to get an Infinity Gamer for Christmas. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it has sparked some ideas, and if it did, always remember to like and subscribe for more. There's even little fireworks. Every like on this video will make my wife more vindicated in suggesting this, so as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.